The council chamber floated in the darkness of space. A massive ring of metal and glass that housed the representatives of 17 alien species. Captain Taman stood at the center of the room, his Earth military uniform looking plain compared to the elaborate armor and biological enhancements of the creatures watching him. He could feel their eyes on him, studying him like scientists examining a new insect species. Ambassador Ji Woo sat beside the council table, her face calm despite the tension in the room. She had spent the last 3 months trying to convince these beings that humanity deserved respect. So far, they had only offered contempt. The insectoid called Vorthok clicked his mandibles together, creating a sound like bones breaking. Through the translation device, his words came out cold and dismissive. Your species has barely left your home system. You have no experience with real warfare. Your bodies are weak. Your technology primitive. Why should we trust you with our survival? Why should we trust you with our survival? Taman had heard this speech before, in different words, from different mouths. He remained standing straight, hands behind his back. Because we are still here, he said simply. Earth has seen thousands of wars. We have fought ourselves, survived plagues, nuclear weapons, climate collapse, and we are still here. We know how to survive. A reptilian delegate hissed with what might have been laughter. Surviving against your own kind is nothing. The Vrax Dominion has conquered 40 systems. They have weapons that can crack planets. Their warriors are 3 meters tall, armored in scales that can stop plasma fire. What can your soft bodies do against that? Taman smiled. And there was something in that smile that made several council members shift uncomfortably. Would you like me to show you? An hour later, the council gathered in the station's combat training facility. Taman had called up Lieutenant Sung Ho and 5 Marines from the Human Diplomatic Security Team. They stood in the center of a large arena, wearing standard combat gear. Nothing fancy, nothing enhanced, just humans with rifles and armor. The training scenario began. Holographic enemies appeared, based on actual Vrax combat footage. The projections showed massive creatures with 4 arms, each holding a weapon, their bodies covered in thick armor plating. They moved fast, attacking from multiple directions. The Marines moved faster. What the council saw made no sense to them. The humans seemed to know where enemies would appear before they showed up. They communicated without speaking, using hand signals and tiny movements. When one Marine ran low on ammunition, another was already moving to cover his position. They fought like a single organism with 6 bodies, but what truly shocked the aliens was the violence of it. Humans did not fight with honor or restraint. They aimed for weak points, used the environment as a weapon. And when one Marine was hit by simulated fire, he did not stop fighting. He kept shooting until the scenario forced him down. The simulation ended. All 6 humans were marked as casualties, but they had eliminated 47 enemy targets in 4 minutes. The Vrax projections, according to the data, should have wiped them out in under 60 seconds. Vorthok's mandibles trembled. Impossible. The casualties should have been reversed. How did they predict movement patterns? How did they continue fighting while injured? Taemin's expression remained neutral. Because that is what we do. We adapt, we endure, and we do not stop until the mission is complete or we are dead. Our bodies might be softer than yours, but our minds are weapons you cannot measure. Ambassador Ji Woo stood, addressing the council directly. The Vrax are winning because you fight them with honor, with rules, with the expectation of mercy. Humans do not have those limitations. We learned thousands of years ago that survival requires becoming more terrifying than the things that hunt us. Council Prime Keltharis, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline shell, spoke with a voice like singing glass. You are asking us to unleash something we may not be able to control. If we bring humans into this war, what happens when the war is over? Ji Woo met his gaze without fear. Then you will have allies who understand the price of peace. We do not fight because we love war. We fight because we love what war protects. Luff. Wergene porter o prace. Wergene porter o perceptor. Wergene porter o perceptor. The council deliberated for 2 days. The Vrax Dominion was advancing on 3 more systems. Billions would die if those worlds fell. Finally, they agreed to humanity's terms. Earth would send military forces, standard soldiers, regular army units, nothing more than conventional military deployment. The council believed they were getting desperate warriors who would die bravely while buying time for a real solution. Tae Min stood in the docking bay with Ambassador Ji Woo as they prepared to return to Earth. She looked at him with concern. They think they understand what is coming. They have no idea. Do they? Tae Min watched the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, the Vrax were burning worlds. Somewhere on Earth, soldiers were preparing to deploy. And somewhere deeper, in facilities that did not appear on any map, other warriors were watching and waiting. No, he said quietly. They think they have seen what humanity can do. They have only seen us being polite. They asked for our soldiers. He paused, and that dangerous smile returned. They have no idea what our soldiers really are, and they definitely do not know what comes after the soldiers. Ji Woo understood. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had levels of warfare they could not imagine. The regular military was just the beginning. The real nightmares were still sleeping. The transport ships arrived in the contested star system exactly on schedule. Major Hyun Woo watched through the viewport as his battalion prepared for deployment. 2,000 soldiers, regular Earth infantry, equipped with standard gear. Nothing special, nothing fancy. Just humans, doing a job. The alien commander, Ix Thor, met them at the orbital station. He was a massive creature, nearly 3 meters tall, with 6 limbs and natural armor plating that had survived 100 battles. He looked at the humans like they were children playing dress-up. You will hold the eastern defensive line, Ix Thor explained, his translator making his voice sound bored. It is a quiet sector. We do not expect the Vrax to attack there. You will gain experience without risk. He did not say what everyone understood. He was putting the humans where they could not mess up anything important. Sergeant Da-eun stood with her squad, checking weapons and gear. She had 12 soldiers under her command, most of them young. Private Jae-sung was on his first deployment. Barely 20 years old. Still eager and nervous. She remembered being that young once, before she learned what war really meant. Listen up, she told her squad. Command thinks this is a safe position. That means it is probably where they will hit us. Check your ammo twice. Check your gear 3 times. And remember, we are not here to be heroes. We are here to do the job and go home. The defensive position was a series of bunkers built into an asteroid field. Good sight lines, decent cover, but limited escape routes. Da-eun walked the perimeter, noting every weakness. If the Vrax came, this would be a killing field. The question was, which side would do the killing? 3 days passed quietly. The alien soldiers stationed nearby relaxed, confident in their superior positions. The humans did not relax. They ran drills, reinforced positions, and prepared for the worst. On the 4th day, the worst arrived. The Vrax came in fast. Too fast for the early warning systems to provide much notice. Hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers, all targeting the quiet sector that everyone thought was safe. They had done exactly what Da-eun predicted. They hit where the enemy was weakest. Except the humans were not weak. The first wave crashed against the defensive positions like a tsunami of claws and weapons. The Vrax were massive, each warrior heavily armed and fearless. They expected the defenders to break and run. Instead, they found humans who had been waiting for this. Da-eun's squad opened fire with precision that shocked the attackers. Every shot counted. Every bullet found a target. When the Vraks got close enough for hand-to-hand combat, they discovered something terrifying. Humans did not fight fair. Private Jae-sung took a plasma burn across his shoulder that should have dropped him. Instead, he switched his rifle to his other hand and kept firing. When his ammunition ran out, he picked up a Vrak's weapon from a fallen enemy and learned how to use it in seconds. The battle lasted 14 hours without pause. No breaks, no rest, no mercy. The Vraks kept coming in waves, certain that the defenders would eventually collapse from exhaustion. Human bodies had to have limits. They did not understand human endurance. Major Hyun-woo coordinated the defense from the command bunker, watching as his soldiers held positions that should have been overrun in minutes. Reports came in from every sector. Soldiers fighting on broken legs, Marines with serious wounds refusing evacuation, entire squads holding choke points against hundreds of enemies. Ixthor contacted him on the command channel, his voice filled with disbelief. "Major, your casualties are at 30%. You must retreat. Your people cannot survive this." Hyun-woo looked at the tactical display. The Vraks had committed everything to this attack. If the humans held just a little longer, the enemy would have nothing left for a second assault. "Negative. We hold this line. But your soldiers are dying." "My soldiers are doing their job," Hyun-woo said coldly. "Tell your forces to prepare a counterattack. We are about to give them an opening." What happened next became legend among the alien species. The humans stopped defending and attacked. Exhausted, wounded, low on ammunition, they charged into the Vraks' positions with a fury that defied explanation. They used knives when guns ran empty. They used their fists when knives broke. They used their teeth when everything else failed. Da-un led her squad through a Vraks' command bunker, moving like ghosts through smoke and fire. Jae-sung, bleeding from multiple wounds, covered their advance with captured alien weapons. They moved with the efficiency of machines and the rage of wounded animals. The Vraks broke first. Warriors, who had never retreated before, threw down their weapons and fled. They had fought many species, conquered many worlds, but they had never faced anything like humans, who simply refused to die. When the battle ended, the defensive line had held. The Vraks lost over 4,000 warriors. The humans lost 600 dead and twice that wounded. By any military logic, the humans should have been the ones retreating. Ixthor walked through the battlefield afterward, seeing the impossible with his own eyes. Human soldiers sat among the dead, too tired to move, but still gripping their weapons. Medical teams worked frantically, and still the soldiers resisted evacuation if they could stand. He found Major Hyun-woo organizing cleanup operations despite being wounded himself. "How?" Ixthor asked simply. "How did you hold? Your species should not be capable of this." Hyun-woo looked at the alien commander with eyes that had seen too much death. "This is what we are. This is what we have always been. You asked for our help. These are just infantry, regular soldiers. Basic training, standard equipment." Ixthor felt something he had not experienced in his 100-year military career. Fear. "Are all human soldiers like this?" Hyun-woo smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "These are just infantry. The real monsters have not arrived yet. These soldiers fight in battalions. With support and backup, they follow orders and respect rules." He paused, looking up at the stars. "The ones coming next work alone in the dark. They do not follow rules. They are the things we send when we want someone to stop existing." Ixthor did not understand then, but he would, soon enough, when the shadows came alive and the Vraks learned that humanity's regular soldiers were just the warning. The council chamber had changed since the first meeting. Where before there had been contempt, now there was desperate need. Ambassador Ji-woo watched the alien representatives argue among themselves, their fear making them loud and chaotic. Human forces had turned the tide in every sector where they deployed. What should have been a slow-losing war had become a stalemate. The Vraks were confused and frightened. Their intelligence reported that humans fought like machines that felt no pain and showed no mercy. Council Prime Keltharis called for silence, his crystalline form glowing with urgency. Ambassador, we require more human forces. Your soldiers have proven exceptional. We need 10 times what you have provided. The Vrak's homeworlds must be attacked directly, or this war will drag on for decades. Jiwoo remained seated, her expression calm. The forces we have provided are already stretched thin. We cannot send more regular military without leaving Earth defenseless. She paused, letting the words settle. However, there is another option. Vorthok clicked his mandibles in frustration. No, Jiwoo corrected softly. I said we sent our regular military. Our soldiers. But Earth has warriors who are not soldiers in the traditional sense. We have been keeping them back because their deployment requires different authorization. The chamber fell silent. General Sujin stepped forward from where she had been standing in the shadows. She was a small woman by human standards, barely 160 centimeters tall. But something in the way she moved made the alien representatives uncomfortable. I command Earth's Special Operations Divisions, Sujin said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. What you have seen so far is our conventional military. Soldiers who fight in large numbers, who hold territory, who win through endurance and determination. They are excellent at what they do. She activated a holographic display. But sometimes, you do not need an army. Sometimes, you need something else entirely. The display showed footage that made several council members recoil. Humans moving through environments that should kill any living thing. Training in underwater caves with no breathing equipment for impossible lengths of time. Surviving in frozen wastelands with minimal gear. Fighting in hand-to-hand combat that looked less like martial arts and more like controlled murder. Our special operations forces go through selection processes that 97% of candidates fail, Sujin continued. These are not normal humans. They are humans who have been pushed past every limit, who have volunteered to become something different, something dangerous. Colonel Donghyun stepped forward beside her. He was average height, average build, completely unremarkable to look at. That was the point. I command ghost teams. We are the ones you never see. We do not fight battles. We eliminate problems. The holographic display changed, showing mission footage that had been classified until this moment. A team of 4 humans infiltrating a pirate stronghold that was considered impregnable. The footage lasted 7 minutes. When it ended, every enemy was dead, and the humans had vanished like smoke. Another clip showed a single human surviving alone on a hostile planet for 3 months, gathering intelligence while avoiding enemy patrols. When extraction finally came, the operative had mapped the entire enemy communications network and identified every command officer by sight. Ixthor, who had joined the council meeting after his experience on the battlefield, spoke up. The soldiers I fought beside were terrifying enough. You are saying these operatives are more dangerous? Yes, Sujin said simply. Your soldiers fight with honor. Our soldiers fight to win. Our special forces fight to make sure the fight never happens again. They operate in teams of 4 to 6 individuals. They insert behind enemy lines, remain undetected for weeks or months, and complete missions that would require battalions of regular troops. A reptilian council member hissed nervously. Why do you keep such warriors separate? Why not use them alongside your regular military? Colonel Donghyun answered, and his voice was cold. Because sometimes, you do not need an army. You need a nightmare. Our special forces do things that regular soldiers should not have to see. They go places that should not be survivable. They do jobs that should not exist. He paused. We keep them separate, because what they do changes them. They volunteer to become monsters so the rest of us do not have to. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some members were relieved at the prospect of such powerful weapons. Others were terrified at what humanity might do with warriors like this after the war ended. Ambassador Jiwoo let them argue for several minutes before speaking. The Vraks have leadership, command centers, strategic targets that conventional warfare cannot reach. Our special operations forces can reach them. Keltharis's crystal form pulsed with conflicting emotions. If we agree to this, what guarantees do we have that these warriors will only target the Vrax? You have my word, Jiwoo said firmly. And you have the history of Earth to examine. We have had special forces for hundreds of years. They are not war criminals. They are professionals who do an impossible job. They follow strict rules of engagement. They complete their missions and come home. She looked around the chamber. But make no mistake, once we deploy them, the war changes. The Vrax leadership will not be safe anywhere. Not in their fortresses, not in their bunkers, not in their fleet command ships. Nowhere. General Sujin added quietly. Your species have been fighting the Vrax with honor, expecting them to eventually negotiate. That will never happen because their leadership believes they are safe. Our ghost teams will change that belief. When their commanders start dying in places that should be impossible to reach, when their admirals disappear from locked rooms, when their high council realizes they are being hunted, they will understand fear, and fear will bring them to the negotiation table. The vote took hours. Finally, the council agreed. Earth would deploy special operations forces with authority to conduct deep penetration missions into Vrax territory. As the council adjourned, Vorthok approached Jiwoo privately. Ambassador, a question. If your special forces are this dangerous, why did you wait? Why not send them immediately? Jiwoo looked at the insectoid with complete honesty. Because we wanted you to understand what you were asking for. We wanted you to see what our regular soldiers could do first, so that when the ghost teams complete their missions, you will know that we could have done this from the beginning. We held back out of respect. Do not mistake our restraint for weakness. Vorthok felt his biological instincts screaming warnings. Humanity had been polite, had followed protocols, had played by the rules, and they had still been terrifying. What would they be like when the rules no longer applied? Somewhere in deep space, Ghost Team Alpha received their deployment orders. They did not cheer or celebrate. They simply prepared their gear and reviewed their mission briefings. They were going hunting, and the Vrax would never see them coming. The stealth ship moved through Vrax space like a whisper of darkness. No engines, no heat signature, nothing but momentum and careful navigation. Inside, 4 humans prepared for a mission that should be impossible. Captain Bo-Ra checked her gear for the 3rd time. Every item had been selected for silence and efficiency. No wasted weight. No unnecessary equipment. In her 20 years of special operations, she had learned that success came from preparation and patience, not firepower. Sergeant Kyung-soo worked on his demolition equipment, assembling charges that would look like mechanical failures rather than sabotage. He was a large man who moved with surprising grace, his hands steady as he prepared devices that could crack orbital platforms. Corporal Minseo lay motionless near the observation port, watching the target planet through a scope that could count the scales on a Vrax warrior from orbit. She had not moved in 3 hours. She would not move until she had memorized every detail of the enemy fortress below. Specialist Junho reviewed medical supplies and infiltration tools. As the team medic, his job was keeping everyone alive. As an infiltration expert, his job was getting them into places that should be sealed shut. He excelled at both. Mission brief, Bo-Ra said quietly. The fortress below houses the Vrax High Command, 12 warlords who control their entire military structure. They meet in person once per cycle for strategic planning. Intelligence says the next meeting is in 72 hours. We eliminate the leadership, collapse the command structure, and exfiltrate before they know we were here. Kyung-soo grunted softly. Fortress has orbital defense platforms, atmosphere shields, and 15,000 soldiers. Should be fun. Minseo finally moved, turning her head slightly. Guard rotation changes every 6 hours. There is a 14-second gap in sensor coverage on the western approach during shift changes. That is our window. 14 seconds, Junho muttered. What could go wrong? Bora smiled grimly. Everything. That is why we trained for this. We insert tonight. 3 weeks to observe, learn, and prepare. The meeting happens, we execute, and we are gone before the bodies cool. Questions? There were no questions. Ghost Team Alpha had run missions like this before. Not exactly like this, because no one had ever tried to infiltrate a Vrax fortress. But close enough. The insertion was flawless. They dropped from orbit during the sensor gap, using stealth suits and gravitational gliding to land 40 kilometers from the fortress. No parachutes, no engines, nothing that could be detected. Just 4 humans, falling through the night like stones with purpose. They landed in hostile territory and disappeared. For 3 weeks, they moved like ghosts through a world that wanted them dead. They slept in shifts, never more than 2 hours at a time. They ate rations that left no waste. They moved only during specific windows when enemy patrols were predictable. Mincio spent 6 days in a single position, buried in rubble 2 kilometers from the fortress, watching guard patterns through her scope. She did not move except to breathe. When local scavengers investigated her hiding spot, she remained so still they walked across her back without noticing her. Kyungsu spent 2 weeks infiltrating the fortress's supply chain, replacing power regulators with modified versions that would fail at precisely the right moment. He worked among enemy soldiers who never realized a human was within arm's reach. His Vrax language skills were perfect. His movements natural. His false identity flawless. Junho mapped the entire underground tunnel system, crawling through maintenance shafts that were never meant for living creatures. He discovered old smuggling routes and emergency escape tunnels. More importantly, he found a way into the command chamber that did not appear on any security schematic. Bora coordinated everything, adjusting plans as new intelligence came in. She spent 43 hours in a single observation post, watching as Vrax officers came and went from the fortress. She learned their routines, their habits, their weaknesses. She memorized faces and names. When the time came, she would know exactly who to eliminate first. The night of the meeting arrived. The 12 warlords gathered in their fortress, confident in their security. Orbital platforms monitored space. Ground forces patrolled in coordinated patterns. Atmosphere shields protected against aerial assault. Every possible threat had been considered and countered. They had not considered Ghost Team Alpha. At precisely the calculated moment, Kyungsu's sabotaged power regulators failed. Not catastrophically, just enough to create confusion. Backup systems activated as planned, but there was a 3-minute window where security protocols were degraded. Junho led the team through the tunnel system he had mapped, moving in complete darkness using only muscle memory and spatial awareness. They emerged inside the fortress through a ventilation shaft that maintenance crews had forgotten existed. Mincio took position in a ventilation junction that overlooked the command chamber. Her rifle was already assembled, her breathing controlled, her heart rate steady. From her position, she had sight lines to every target. Bora and Kyungsu moved through the fortress like they owned it, wearing stolen maintenance uniforms and carrying equipment that justified their presence. They passed guards who never questioned them. They accessed restricted areas using codes Junho had stolen from security terminals. They were invisible because they belonged. The warlords gathered in the command chamber for their strategic meeting. Warlord Zaxrath, the supreme commander, stood at the head of the table, outlining plans for the next major offensive. Around him, the military leadership of an empire discussed how to conquer more worlds. They never noticed the ventilation grate opening silently above them. They never saw Min Sio's rifle barrel emerging from the darkness. They never heard the first shot. What happened next took 7 minutes. Min Sio's first shot eliminated Zaxrath with perfect precision. Before his body hit the floor, she had acquired her second target. The chamber erupted in chaos as warlords scrambled for weapons and cover. Bora and Kyungsu entered through the main door, having sealed it behind them. Their weapons were silenced, their movements efficient. They were not there to fight an army. They were there to complete a specific task. The warlords were trained warriors, each one a veteran of countless battles. But they had never faced humans who moved like death itself. Bo-Ra's shots were surgical, eliminating targets in order of threat assessment. Kyung-Soo's demolition training meant he knew exactly where to place grenades for maximum effect and minimal collateral damage. Junho provided overwatch from the tunnel entrance, monitoring security feeds and warning of incoming guards. His voice in their earpieces was calm and steady, calling out threats before they materialized. When it was over, all 12 warlords were dead. The ghost team set charges that would destroy all evidence of their infiltration, planted false clues suggesting an internal power struggle, and exfiltrated through the tunnel system. They were 30 kilometers away when the charges detonated. They were off-planet before Vrak's security even understood what had happened. The stealth ship accelerated out of the system, carrying 4 humans who had just decapitated an empire. Bo-Ra filed her mission report using encrypted channels. Kyung-Soo cleaned and stored his equipment. Min Seo disassembled her rifle with practiced efficiency. Junho treated their minor injuries, none serious enough to mention in official reports. Mission complete, Bo-Ra said quietly. 12 targets eliminated. 0 friendly casualties. 0 witnesses. The Vrak's high command no longer exists. On their fortress world, Vrak's soldiers discovered their leaders dead in a room that should have been impossible to breach. Security footage showed nothing. Evidence pointed nowhere. It was as if death itself had walked through their walls and taken what it wanted. In the final moments before his death, Warlord Zaxrath had understood something terrifying. Humans were not warriors in the Vrak sense. They were not honorable opponents who fought with courage and strength. They were apex predators who hunted with patience and precision. They were the things that lurked in darkness, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The Vraks had feared human soldiers. Now, they knew terror. Because somewhere in the shadows, more ghost teams were moving, and no fortress was safe. The war ended not with a grand battle but with silence. After the Vrak's high command was eliminated, their empire collapsed into chaos. Warlords fought each other for control. Supply lines broke down. Military coordination disappeared. Within 6 months, what had been a terrifying military machine became scattered groups of confused soldiers who no longer knew who to follow. The Galactic Council met in emergency session, trying to process what had happened. They had expected a decade of grinding warfare. Instead, they got 6 months of human military efficiency, followed by complete enemy collapse. Ambassador Ji Woo stood before the council once more, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Where before there had been contempt and desperation, now there was fear and respect. The aliens looked at her differently now, seeing not just a diplomat, but a representative of something dangerous. Council Prime Keltharis spoke with careful formality. Ambassador, on behalf of the 17-member species of the Galactic Council, we offer humanity a seat of power and territorial rights to 12 systems as payment for your military service. We also request a permanent military alliance. Ji Woo remained standing, her expression neutral. The Council is generous. However, before we discuss payment, we must discuss cost. General Taemin, now promoted after his service, stepped forward with a data file. His face looked older than it had at the war's beginning. Our conventional forces suffered 30% casualties. 6,000 dead, 12,000 wounded, many permanently. These were soldiers who followed orders, held impossible positions, and died doing their duty. He paused, and something in his expression made the chamber uncomfortable. Our Special Operations Forces suffered 60% casualties. Of the 12 ghost teams deployed, only 5 returned complete. The others lost members to enemy action, environmental hazards, or mission failures. These were warriors who went into darkness alone and did not come back. The council chamber fell silent. They had celebrated victory without considering what it had cost the humans. Colonel Dong Hyun stepped forward, wearing a dress uniform that carried more medals than seemed possible for one person. His voice was quiet but carried throughout the chamber. In 3 months, our ghost operatives eliminated 47 high-value targets deep in enemy territory. They collapsed command structures, destroyed strategic assets, and spread fear through an empire. They did this while operating completely alone, with no support, no backup, and no hope of rescue if things went wrong. He activated a holographic display showing faces, young faces, old faces, male and female, all human. These are the operatives who did not come home. They volunteered for this. They knew the risks. They became monsters so the rest of the galaxy could sleep safely. And now they are gone, and their families will never know the full truth of what they did because their missions remain classified. Ambassador Ji Woo spoke again, her voice carrying steel beneath the diplomatic tone. So before the Council offers us territory and alliances, understand what you are allying with. We are a species that will send our children to die in darkness for people we barely know. We are a species that can transform kind individuals into efficient killers when necessary. We are a species that does not forget, does not forgive, and does not stop once we commit to something. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative. The Council wanted our help. We gave it. We gave it completely, without reservation, and at terrible cost. Now you offer us rewards, but what we really want is for this to never be necessary again. A memorial service was held on Earth, in gardens specifically designed to honor those who died in classified operations. Thousands attended, including alien representatives seeing human mourning customs for the first time. Young Hee stood at a podium, looking out at the crowd. She was a civilian, a teacher of young children, widow of a ghost operative whose name could not be mentioned publicly. Her voice shook as she spoke. My husband was a gentle man. He loved books and music. He volunteered at shelters and taught children to read. He was the kindest person I ever knew. Tears rolled down her face, and when his country called, he became something else. He died alone, in a place I will never know, doing a job I will never understand. And I am so proud of him, and I miss him so much. Her words broke something in the assembled crowd. Humans wept openly. Alien observers stood in confused silence, trying to process the duality of a species that could be both gentle and lethal. Colonel Dong Hyun spoke at the memorial, his voice rough with emotion. People ask what makes someone volunteer for special operations. Why would anyone choose to become what we become? The answer is simple. We do it so others do not have to. We go into darkness so others can stay in light. We become monsters so the people we love can remain human. He looked at the memorial wall, where names were carved in stone. Some names were public, honored dead, whose families knew their stories. Other names were hidden behind classified seals, warriors whose sacrifices could not be revealed. These warriors understood the price. They paid it willingly, and we who remain carry their memory, knowing that we owe them everything. The Council sent representatives to the memorial. Ix Thor, the alien commander who had fought beside human regulars, stood quietly for hours, reading the names. Vorthok, who had once dismissed humans as weak, laid flowers at the memorial with trembling mandibles. In the council chambers days later, the final agreements were negotiated. Earth accepted territorial rights, but declined military expansion. Instead, they proposed strict rules of engagement for any future conflicts. Ambassador Ji Woo outlined the terms. Humanity will maintain defensive alliances with the Council. Our regular forces will assist in peacekeeping and defense, but our special operations forces will only deploy under specific conditions, with oversight, and with clear mission parameters. We will not become the galaxy's assassins. General Tae Min added, the Council has seen what we can do when threatened. The Vraks learned what happens when you attack our allies. Let this be the last time such lessons are necessary. Peace maintained through fear of violence is not real peace. We want something better. The Council agreed to everything. They had no choice, really. They had seen what happened when humanity was polite and restrained. None of them wanted to see what would happen if humanity ever stopped being polite. Months later, in facilities that did not appear on any map, new recruits began ghost team selection training. They knew the statistics. They knew only 3% would succeed. They knew what the job required and what it would cost. They volunteered anyway. An instructor watched the new candidates beginning their first day of training. He was a veteran operative, scarred and tired, who had survived missions that killed better warriors. He looked at the eager faces and saw his younger self, back when he thought he understood what service meant. "Listen up," he told them quietly. "Some of you will quit today. Most of you will quit this month. The few who remain will become something different. You will learn to survive in places that should kill you. You will learn to do things that should be impossible. You will become weapons that walk like humans." He paused, making sure they understood. "And if you succeed, you will spend the rest of your life carrying what you have done. You will have nightmares about missions you cannot discuss. You will lose friends whose deaths you cannot mourn publicly. You will become someone your family barely recognizes. This is the price. This is what it costs to keep the darkness away from others." No one quit that day. They would, eventually. Most of them. But for now, they stood ready to pay whatever price was necessary. In the galaxy beyond, peace held. The Vrax remnants negotiated treaties and accepted oversight. New species joined the Council, confident in the protection it offered. Trade routes reopened, and worlds began to rebuild. And in the shadows, ghost teams continued their silent vigil. Not because they loved war, but because they loved what war protected. They were the guardians no one saw, the warriors no one thanked, the monsters who chose to become nightmares so others could dream safely. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity's regular soldiers were terrifying enough. The elite forces were something beyond comprehension. But the real power was not in their weapons or training. It was in their willingness to sacrifice everything for people they would never meet. That was what made them truly dangerous. That was what made them truly human.